Welcome to the Somewhat Frank podcast, hosted by me, Frank Gruber, and joined by my friends and colleagues, Jen Consalvo and John Guidos. This podcast explores the latest trends and advancements in technology and business, including emerging startups and how they shape today while looking forward towards the future. We also enjoy testing new gadgets and products and sharing our findings too, along with our favorite pop culture picks like music, books, and what we're streaming. This podcast is produced in collaboration with our company, Established. Ready to dive in? Time to be somewhat frank. Welcome back to Somewhat Frank Podcast. I'm Frank Gruber, your host. Thanks for being here today. We've got a jam-packed episode today. We're going to talk about eggs. We're going to talk about AI, space, and even a supersonic booming jet traveling. But before we do, I want to jump in and welcome my co-hosts here today. Today we've got Jen Consalvo, Your Problems Consalvo, and Johnny Good Times Guidos. Welcome to you both. John, Jen.
Hi, Frank.
Hello. Great to be here.
Happy to be here.
All right. Let's get rolling here. First off, I wanted to mention I was last in Miami, I think, on the last podcast. No, where was I? I was somewhere else. Anyway, I was in Miami last week at the Space Foundation Innovate Space Finance Forum, and it was a great event. Had a chance to talk with a bunch of really interesting people, space people as I call them, and we got a chance to be on a session with a bunch of investors that focus on investing in space. We've invested in Scout Space through Established Ventures, as well as a smaller way through Blue Shift and in Blue Shift Aerospace as well, which is a Maine-based company doing some interesting things in space. And it was a lot of fun. So got to escape the weather. We had a huge snowstorm that day that I left. I literally removed snow for like 2 hours or so, and then jumped in a plane, and next thing you know, it was like sunny. And I got back and we had another snowstorm. Oh, and we had an earthquake. So it's been pretty crazy over here. But I want to dive in. We're gonna talk about eggs first, because I'm starting to feel like, guys, I might be the smartest person. Well, John, you're also included in this because you actually advised me to do this, but one of the smartest people on this podcast, because we somehow timed getting and raising chickens with what has now turned into some of the highest egg prices we've seen in a long time. So I don't know. We've got avian flu. It's, basically taking out a bunch of chickens all over the country, unfortunately, and it's impacting the poultry farms and sending the egg prices soaring. And we're getting 3 to 4 eggs a day from our now small flock of 5 chickens. So each one of those eggs, which initially cost $3,000 an egg, is going down, and eventually we're going to have this intersection where they're the same price or less. So I'm very excited about that. John, how are your chickens doing?
We're good. They're not laying as much right now with the weather being as cold as it is. But I will tell you, where I live, there's a lot of farms out here, and a lot of people sell their homegrown chicken eggs, whatever you want to call it. And I've even noticed on the sign, like the hand-painted signs that people put out in their yard, for not free, but eggs for sale. And the price has been going up just on not only in the supermarket, but in the eggs from the farms that I've seen out here.
They're like crossing it off with marker, like
Yeah.
marker, and putting a new price, $20 an egg. No, I can see that happening. Yeah, so it's been interesting. We'll do a quick shot of our chickens right now, live chicken cam. You can see they're trying to stay warm. We're trying to also keep them kind of in their little run, because what I learned is the flu, that they can get the bird flu, right? It's actually, they're not hanging out with other chickens ever. They don't go to like chicken establishments to hang out at night or anything like that. They pretty much stay in their coop and in their little run, and they've got a decent sized run, but I guess you can get the flu from birds that are in the area. And there was a sighting in Kennebunk. There's actually been a known case of bird flu with a Canadian goose. Our Canada goose has bird flu, and it is in our area. So that's concerning, because what that means is if, one of these birds, happens to come into their like more free range area when we do let them out, we're keeping an eye on them, and then we let them out a little bit, they would potentially could pick up the flu. So it's not 100% in the clear. Kind of reminds me back in COVID days when you'd be like, we're going to do things with social distancing, right? But you didn't see anybody and you still thought you were like in trouble. Well, that's kind of where we're at here with this. So,
Can we put little masks on the chickens? Just
well, I wish, yeah, we could.
protect
I
them.
think that's probably, if you Google that, I bet you could find some of those on YouTube somewhere.
There's so many crazy chickens. Just for anyone out there, this has been a whole new world. John, you've probably seen this, especially for us, though, having a daughter who loves to um, now learn everything about chickens. People live with chickens. They have them in their home. They put diapers on them. They dress them up. Some people love like there's all these videos of chickens on Roombas. They apparently love to like cruise around on Roombas. Like it is a wild world of chicken culture in America.
Yeah, it sure is, and you're never going to see that happen in our house. Just that's the
No.
I think if we left for a few weeks, maybe, but yeah, that's the other way you would probably get bird flu, and there's no cure for bird flu, so we're going to try to keep our distance, I guess you could say. And I have definitely been covering up my mouth and eyes and things when I'm having to go out and handle their they're things they drop everywhere. So anyway, so moving on, we'll keep an eye on those chicken egg prices, but we are looking pretty brilliant right now with these eggs, and they are delicious. All right, so moving along, we've got a lot of great topics today. Like the one that really shook the whole AI kind of industry landscape this week was DeepSeek. If those aren't familiar, DeepSeek was this Chinese AI company that dethroned ChatGPT as the number one app in the App Store. The public markets, took this as a sign that maybe there's more room than just ChatGPT and a few others to be at the top of the charts there. So despite any independent verification of DeepSeek's claims, which they claim to be able to produce this open source product for less that runs on like less powerful computers than rivals like ChatGPT and Claude and others, it crushed NVIDIA. And I know, John, you're a stockholder, so we have to disclose that, but it crushed NVIDIA's stock and brought it back made the largest drop in stock in U.S. history. They lost about $600 billion in market value, and it brought the Nasdaq Tech Index down 3%. So pretty crazy that just claims almost looks like a I mean, we don't have these verified statistics on this app, so it almost looks like what if someone wanted to really take us down, they could just put a bunch of really potentially compelling information out there about some industry, and it could tank the market, which is kind of scary. So
Yeah, it's
John,
been a roller coaster. I mean, I like you said, I own stock a lot, well, a good portion of my stock in Nvidia and my wife as well. And so we took a hit there, but it'll bounce back. I what I think's a little bit interesting about that is, why Nvidia, took the big hit. I know that part of the reason that they say that DeepSeek's so interesting and such making such waves is because basically it's a few different things, right? One is that um, it's not as expensive to build an AI system as previously thought, and then you don't need as much speed as the NVIDIA units provide. But what I think is weird, I saw reports that some are saying that they can't talk about it for whatever reason, but that DeepSeek actually has 10,000 NVIDIA, whatever you want to call it, units that they're actually using. So I don't know. I find that strange. It'll bounce back. Market volatility. Sometimes it's a popularity contest, but we did take a big hit this week. And so I did see that ChatGPT and OpenAI with Sam Altman they're also trying to do what they can to fight back to some extent. And
yeah, I mean, every kind of player in the space kind of weighed in on this, I feel like. And, it really, what is exciting about it, if it's legitimate, and we'll probably won't, no one ever really know, is that, it lowered the costs. When you're using open source technology, so similar to like, uh, WordPress, which is a platform for publishing content on the internet, uses open source, and they power a lot of the web. Things like that kind of help bring costs down because you got a bunch of folks developing, and it also makes it easier for folks to kind of then uh, you're not putting all that investment into that where people are just kind of diving in and creating things. So it's uh it's potentially lowering the cost of doing this type of development, and also allows for others to kind of then tack in and leverage that lower cost version of like a similar thing to ChatGPT. So if you were to go and build on top of ChatGPT, for example, you may have to pay them to use their service. With an open source, you may not have to do pay them as much if you do have to pay them at all. So it's a different ball game, and it could open up the opportunity for additional innovation and potentially additional investment into startups and other innovations that could ultimately then try to dominate the AI space, which to this point has been kind of closed off. It's like the big players, like, and those big players are, mostly Silicon Valley based and mostly really deep pocket based with really deep connections and networks. And so it's not, it's no joke that like Sam Altman's in DC this week saying, hey, this is an opportunity for you to invest more into AI in the US. So come and invest in us. So he's got like SoftBank, which is like rumored to be ready to drop another $25 billion into OpenAI. And so, he's also launching partnerships with U.S. national laboratories to use their supercomputer to bring AI models to their supercomputer. So there's a lot of movement in this space. I feel like this last week felt like 2 or 3 months of information happening. It's almost like we've got like a week full of AI, I guess, or something. I don't know. It's been crazy. So I don't know,
I
Jen.
think it's just gonna continue though. I
Yeah.
mean, it is interesting. Early stage investors are excited about this, right? Because it opens up more opportunity for those sort of very early stage AI companies to actually be able to compete. So competition's good. It's interesting. We're literally the country is like at a stop because of TikTok. So, what kind of concerns are we going to have here when we're working directly with Chinese models? It'll be interesting to see how this unfolds.
Huge implications there. Like literally, it's a Trojan horse. Think about it. Like TikTok, we've heard for years is potentially a Trojan horse to get data and information about the Americans, America, like things that are happening in America. And this is now you're literally putting in terms and things, sharing way oversharing. Like with you get real comfortable with AI, you might overshare, and now they've got all this information on you and what you're looking for and your likes and dislikes and what you're trying to solve and what you're thinking about. And yeah, it could really have huge impact on if it is a national security concern, I think that it should be. This could be an issue that with this app, DeepSeek, could be banned as well. You don't know.
Yeah.
Um, definitely something to think about. It's actually worse than TikTok, in my opinion.
It's
Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the legs that it has. Like, is this something that's going to actually have a lot of legs and start to fuel and become a backbone and work, with lots of companies? Or do we start to see other competitors crop up, and that becomes less of a concern? TikTok became a concern because of its massive, massive audience and deep engagement, right? Like, I think, was it teenage guys are spending 17 hours a week on TikTok? That's the concern, is that addiction and just the pure engagement. So how deep seated could DeepSeek get?
Well, that's even the names kind of concerns me, right? Like they're literally trying to seek information about people deeply into the deep into America, right? Like I don't know, like it is concerning. It seems almost like um yeah, comical that literally here we are banning TikTok, and 2 minutes later, like, oh, here's another one, by the way, that you all can get, and where it's number one in the charts already, and like every American's using it, and like now we're gonna build startups on top of it, and have built huge infrastructure, and it's just gonna multiply. Like that to me just is like, I mean, brilliant if it is a Chinese like national security kind of like, you know, evasive technology to find out information about America. That's pretty brilliant, but at the same time, it's like, wow, guys, like maybe we should just like think about this before we let this kind of open in. But I do like the aspect of, for all those things, I do like the aspect of open source lowers the costs.
Competition,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. Always good for the economy, for businesses, bring down those costs. But
Mhm.
yeah, maybe just like let's figure this out.
It's also a little bit of irony too. Like we have so many things made in China. We used to make things in America, right? It costs more, to do that, and we are trying to shift a little bit more back to making things in America. But like the things that we get, most things are made in China, and we get it because the costs are so low, right? And here they are now, like, oh, AI, we can do the same thing we do with everything else, and it's like, let's bring the cost down and bring it back out, and put our little made in China stamp on it, and we're good. So it's really interesting. I think, and so for those not familiar, it's like it costs them just a few $1 million to create this, whereas, the valuations and that and the money that's been raised by OpenAI and Anthropic and XAI and others um, has been in the million, billions of dollars, right? Like these are huge rounds. So and valuations, that are biggest I've ever, some of the biggest valuations I've ever seen as far as what company might be. So definitely a turning point potentially on AI and the economics around AI. So that's kind of interesting as well. And it got everyone's attention for sure. But that still is also concerning to me because like to get to have a startup, literally we're talking about a startup that just came out and it's topping the apps charts to have that much impact on Wall Street is definitely concerning. I would hope that there'd be a little bit more fact checking and verification around some of these things before we start worrying about, pulling money out of some of these stocks. All right. So we kind of talked about that one quite a bit. Like AI has definitely been front and center the last week or so. There's a project that was launched, I think it was the beginning of this week. I don't can't last week and this week have blurred together. It might have been last week, but anyway, it's called Stargate. It's a $5 billion, or sorry, $50 billion AI infrastructure project that was unveiled by the new administration. And so the previous administration had basically put some parameters around AI and whatnot, and those got struck, I think, by an executive order by Trump to basically move forward with this new plan, which more or less is to build a huge AI infrastructure initiative led by OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and MGX, and basically expand U.S. data centers. Which, for those listening that don't know anything about this stuff or don't care, it's important because we need a lot more data centers to be able to process all these different queries. It takes a lot of processing power to run these models, and you need a place to do this kind of work. So this facility is in Abilene, Texas, which it's currently under construction. This is kind of in process, and now it's just been more fuel to the fire, I guess you could say. And it kind of created this like little bit of a reaction from Elon Musk, who doubted that the funding was going to be available, and Sam Altman shot back with, "We already have it funded," and it's been a little bit of a billionaire, or I guess, versus Sam. I don't know, is Sam Altman a billionaire? I don't. I guess he would be on paper. Yeah, so lots of interesting things with these folks. These folks that are kind of leading up these charges, going back and forth, and it aims to really strengthen AI dominance in the U.S. So I don't know. It's interesting. A lot of focus on AI this last week.
Yeah, I think that what you just said is a good thing for us, right? That AI is kind of trying to, or US is trying to take the lead here.
Well, they were kind of already were like trying to put guardrails on it because it can be potentially dangerous, right? Like we don't know what the power of this stuff could do, and obviously we know what the power of like social media has done over the last decade. Some good, a lot of bad, so I think that's what their concern is, like how do we don't want to like once that genie's out of the bottle, it's hard to get it back in. So I think
Yeah,
they're trying to tread lightly.
it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I don't think we actually even know yet. It's kind of all being figured out right now, but I'm always leery of things, too much government oversight.
Yeah, I think the government side, like I think at the end of the day, data wise, like it'd be, in my opinion, I think that it's better if U.S. has an understanding and control of like where that data is and who's got their eyes on it. I think it becomes a national security risk when you've got other countries that are you know basically using it for their own purposes potentially. We don't know. We don't know what that data is being
Yeah,
used.
and let me be clear. I don't like that anybody has it.
It's
So
hard because you
And
basically have to in order to run any of these products, right? Like you basically are giving your data to somebody. And so we've always had that as a kind of the way that we work, right? On the internet, you put in a URL. Where do you think that data is going, right? It's going somewhere. Somebody's got
and,
that
and
information.
keep in
So
mind, this is not just about data, and that's why, it is important. And to a certain extent, I agree. We need to see where this goes. We need to um, let AI flourish to a certain degree, but there's also responsibility, right? Like we can't say, oh, completely hands off, do anything you want. Like there's a certain amount of just like we hold every business accountable for certain things, right? Like a mom and pop, a bar down the street has certain responsibilities. They are responsible for making sure that someone doesn't go out jump in a like they don't get overserved, jump in a car and kill somebody, right? Like AI has a lot of power, and the way that people utilize it, companies utilize it, they have to be responsible for what they're doing. And so there has to be some, just like every other industry out there, there has to be some corporate, governance. There needs to be some oversight. So I think, we do need to think about guardrails to a certain extent, not to squelch innovation, but just for pure safety, whether that's data or what these apps are doing, because they will be powerful beyond just stealing data.
Yeah.
They're interfacing with us. People are having relationships, right? It's informing people, telling people what to do. And I think there's just a lot more that's going to come out in terms of like the types of applications that are going to really surprise people.
Well, the risks that I can think of, there's a bunch, right? And it's with any app. It's not just with, a Chinese app or a American app or whatever, but especially with the AI side, right? You're putting your data in. It could be your voice, it could be your face, it could be pictures, it could be your thoughts, your
And
personal.
you may not be putting data in. It just might be out there.
Well, it might be out there, but and then they're grabbing it, or
Mhm.
they're using something on your computer to grab it off your computer, or maybe it's spyware, you don't know. And then so there's that component, but then there's also the component of like disinformation. So like thinking about like now that you have this voice and likeness, maybe there's a way that, they're making versions of you out there that are just like you. You're gonna see that your hologram of yourself is answering things the same way that you would and have your likeness. So that's potentially an issue. There's manipulation that AI can do, like they can, you've seen the deep fakes, right? Of like Tom Cruise, things like that. Like that could happen with AI. And those are getting really darn good. Like they're really good. I mean, really, really good. So it's hard to tell what's real anymore. And I think that's a concern. And there's obviously the cybersecurity threats, potentially data breaches, exploits, things like that. Identity theft being another one. And then, bigger picture, military, strategic kind of things like national security is one of them, right? Like that could be an issue too. So if you have those kinds of things, there access to those kinds of pieces of information on your computer or in your, somewhere, I think that could be an issue for going forward. And as we're on the topic of data, we could talk about a new product that's a startup that's taking a different approach to data centers. Do you guys want to shift gears?
Sure.
Yeah.
Unless you want to rebuttal on that last point, but I think it's kind of interesting. This Florida-based startup Lonestar is setting up the first ever lunar database. That's right, lunar, like so putting it on the moon. First data center on the moon called Lunar Data Hold, or the company's Lone Star Data Holdings, and they're launching Freedom, a data center on the moon with SpaceX Falcon 9. So kind of interesting. They're going to use solar energy to natural cooling to make it an ideal place to store data, and it should be kind of interesting, like to watch if this is maybe this is a trend all of a sudden. But they've got some key clients. Imagine Dragons, I think, caught my attention. The music group, state of Florida, and others. They've raised 10 million, and um, they're basically really going to do this soon. So it's not like a later kind of thing. It's a huge lift though. Get it up to space and set up this data center.
Literally a huge lift.
Yeah. Nice, Jen. I was going to say my biggest question is why would they ever even think about doing that, right? Because it seems like there's easier ways to make money, for example. But I think that what they're saying is there's abundant solar energy and natural cooling up there. It's ideal for secure data storage and disaster recovery. So,
How are you going to get anybody going to go in there and try to steal it? Like you got to get to the moon. Like it's a big hurdle, right? Like talking
it'd
like
be a
a
good movie.
yeah, it could be a good movie. Yeah, I already think of that, right? But yeah, it's definitely the challenges are the cost to get the data center up there, and then if anything happens maintenance wise, you got to send people or robots or somebody up there, and obviously those missions are risky. So it could hinder success. We'll see. It'll be interesting to literally watch up and see them building it up there. Hopefully, it's not something you're visible. I think I don't want to see the moon look different. I think that's another thing I'd be worried about. They put a big a big weird like I don't know. They put like a weird like shape or something on the top of it. It looks like an eyeball or something in the weird spot. I don't know. Something. At least if they do that, make it look cool. I guess. Anyway. Uh,
Definitely.
yeah. So. All right, moving along. We can talk a lot about flight and things like that. We've got a new startup. It's not that new actually. It's been around a little bit. Actually got a chance to meet their CEO a while back, and as they were raising funds a few years ago. Boom Supersonic. It's they just recently had a successful test of this prototype jet, which reached supersonic speeds over the Mojave Desert. And their next step is actually this uh, Overture airliner, which is going to carry 64 to 80 passengers at Mach 1.7. Um, cutting transatlantic flights to about 3.5 hours. So if you could imagine flying from New York to London in under, like around 3 hours or so, that'd be pretty cool. So it's the comeback of the Condor era ended, and now here we are with Supersonic. We've talked about this before, but it's happening, and they're making some progress.
I think it's pretty awesome. I mean, anything like that, that's just really cool, right? And I know that there's some big airlines that are involved. So, kind of an interesting side story. Unfortunately, there was a plane crash in DC last night, which was scary. But
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
brother was on an American airline flight from Charlotte to Indianapolis at the exact same time that the crash happened. So, you can
Wow.
imagine heart prayers and thoughts go out to everybody that lost their lives and the family members involved. But it was scary on our end as well because we were, concerned about my brother being up there at the same time.
Yeah, no, it hits close to home because we take those little, it was a small jet, like the kind that we take from Maine to DC, and we actually have done that multiple
Embraer, yeah.
times. And Jen was supposed to go tomorrow or today actually. So they've halted all flights in there this week until they figure this out. But long story short, definitely close to home. Obviously, prayers and thoughts, and go to all everyone affected by this tragic event. It's really strange. There was a helicopter, from the Army, more or less, which run. If you're in DC, you know that those helicopters run back and forth a lot, right? They go all the time from that area, Fort Belvoir, right there to run up and down the Potomac. And so, yeah, definitely sad to hear this news, and know a lot of people affected by it, and even some folks that we know. So it's very sad to hear this. But to put it in perspective, millions of flights have taken off and landed since the last time we've had a tragic collision like this, or any kind of fatality in the air. So it is still, even by the numbers, the safest way to travel, safer than vehicles even, because you're not seeing these types of mishaps regularly. So
I think that's why it's so shocking because it's, for so many years, especially people of our age, right? Like, we grew up hearing, of many different tragedies. And as we've gotten older, it's been fewer and far between. And we've really, I think, enjoyed over, again, the past 5, 10 years, just how that has really minimized. And that's what makes it even more hard to swallow. It's just completely tragic.
yeah,
But I also did want to mention that Boom Supersonic, bringing it back to this really cool, interesting younger company, was actually they're a really nice poster child for SBIR funds. So we work a lot with that program with the SBA, and they received several $1 million that helped develop their technology as they were literally getting started, getting off the ground. So exciting to see how those funds have been used to develop something that could be so exciting for all of us for the future.
yeah, it's really, I mean, it shows you that they're finding these R&D startups for innovation that are making big strides. I mean, this is not something that to take lightly, flying that quick, that fast, building basically this plane that more or less is a rocket. So yeah, definitely seeing American tax dollars going to this kind of work in a positive way, and it's definitely a poster child for that kind of effort. And it does look like we're going to be able to, move places quicker because of it. So with American Airlines, United Airlines, Japan Airlines, all pre-ordering this boom rocket. So um, definitely looking forward to that. I don't know, would any of you be interested in taking one of those flights, those 3-hour flights to London? So I'll
Yeah,
pre-book.
I would definitely be interested. I'm sure the price is probably going to be pretty steep, but yeah, if you could do that relatively quickly, of course.
Yeah. I'd be on board. I do. I think over time, again, like depending on how this rolls out, the prices would eventually come down. Um, I would like to know, again, just going back to safety, you know, it's not something we often hear about, but like with all this new technology, what are the newest, um, what is the future of safety for air travel? I think we've talked about it a little bit on this podcast in the past. But that's an area that I think, especially anytime something like this happens, it's top of mind. When Boeing was having their issues with their planes, that comes up, right? Like there's got to be technology, AI, come on, like let's solve this. Let's prevent something like this from ever happening again.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Concorde went out of business after their plane crashed, right? So that was the last supersonic
Oh
commercial
yeah.
carrier. So that's scary. That was the first thing that came to my mind
And
is
that image is so like burned into all of our mem again, like people of a certain age, it is burned into our memories.
Yeah.
right.
And we, just had the Challenger um anniversary, a week or so ago. So definitely we've seen a lot of things happen in that similar kind of fashion and obviously don't want to see that again. But we also have to move forward. Like I said, it's from a safety perspective. Flying is still one of the more safe ways to go. I think I want to look it up, but I think walking across the street might even be more dangerous in busy cities. So yeah. So anyway, something to think about, and we'll keep moving forward on that same kind of thread. We got a lot of SpaceX in here today. Apple and SpaceX teamed up for a Starlink, for Starlink on iPhones. I guess there's a new approach to bring. John, you have Starlink, right?
Yeah, I do. This is actually one of the more, we talk about AI a lot, et cetera, but something like this to me is an ultimate game changer. Like I'm really excited about it. We have Starlink. It's I think 4 times faster than any wire, hardline service that we could get out here in rural Indiana. And so putting it on your phones, I mean, think about it. No more cell phone towers, right? All of the infrastructure and everything that you need to actually bury a cable to your house to give you internet, that's all going to be gone, right? It's all going to be able to be done via, satellite dish or right on your phone. So, and you can get it anywhere in the world. It's a huge game changer. Elon Musk gets a lot of credit for things. I think that ultimately this is going to be his biggest, what he's the biggest thing that he's done that's affected the world personally.
Yeah, it again puts a lot of, well, first off, the benefits are, eliminates dead zones, provides remote coverage in areas that you may not have the infrastructure set up. The negatives are it does put a lot of pressure on these satellites, right? To make sure that you have, once everyone's relying on it, you need to, what happens when service goes down, and it also puts a lot of potential, I guess, interest or potential more investment into space domain awareness. So companies like Scout and others that are doing things to keep satellites in orbit and keep them moving and working and all that. Like, Think Orbital's another one. They're doing like X-ray into crafts up there, so or like into satellites and things to try to do diagnostics. So there's a lot of new companies trying to help with this effort because once you get a bunch of stuff up in space, it's not like easy for me to go up and check on it. Like if my internet goes down, I can
Yeah.
just walk outside and check the line to see if it got cut, right? Or if something happens, like here, it's like this is a whole nother way of having to manage it.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. The one thing I would say is the benefit, I think, far exceeds some of those risks. Like, and we think about it how we use our cell phones or internet in our day-to-day lives, but the impact that it's going to have on some of the countries in Africa, for example, like I read a statistic somewhere, and I don't want to be quoted on it, but like it's unbelievable the amount of the world that's actually not connected. They don't have phones or they don't have internet. It's wild, right? Like one of the things I thought about years ago is some of these rural areas, and let's take Africa as an example. Some of these countries in Africa, um, their schools don't have internet, right? Or you look at there's war-torn areas like the Ukraine or the fires in Los Angeles. When you lose some of those cables and service, I mean when it's coming from a satellite, I think there's just a lot more good that can hopefully be done. I guess is the best way I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no, it's
say
a
it.
game changer for global mobile coverage, right? Like places that didn't have coverage could have coverage with just a cell phone, which there generally are cell phones. It's funny you said there's no internet. They probably, if you checked on some of those places, they probably all have phones, with some kind of service. So it's just now, linking those two up, and they're, obviously this is new, so it's going to come to iPhone, iPhone, iPhones that are running on 8 iOS 18.3, and it's going to be limited to text messaging for now, and then voice and data will be coming after that. But it's FCC approved. They approved it late 2024, and it's going to allow these direct to cell coverage via Starlink. So exciting stuff coming, and I know it could be a big game changer for the world, basically. All right, switching gears, we're going to talk about testing. We haven't tested anything recently, but I have a new test. It's the Aura Ring 3. I don't know if you can see that, but this is the Aura Ring 3 in all of its brilliance, my precious. It's a ring that actually helps you with health tracking. And so for a while, I was wearing a Whoop, and I gave it up. I had it for a few years. It's like a little band that you would wear around your wrist, and I got tired of wearing it. And to be quite frank, which is my name, these bands, which I've gone through a bunch of them, they started to stink. And I know they're made out of like, you can get other ways to wear it, but it got really smelly, and you had to like clean it a lot and stuff like that. And just, wearing things around my wrists kind of um, was something I didn't want to do anymore on that wrist anyway. And so anyway, this is a monitor. It does 30 plus biometric kind of markers. It helps with sleep, activity tracking, stress, health, heart health. There's some specific things for women's health, which don't apply to me, but could apply to others. And uses smart sensing technology. And the hardest part about it is I had to get used to wearing a ring on a finger I don't get, I wasn't used to, and you have to get it sized. So like I ended up sizing it, and I must have sized it on a day that my hand was really cold, because it definitely took at the first couple days. I don't know if you can see this or not, but like it took a while to get used to on this finger. And but anyway, it's durable. You can get different colors. It's pretty long battery life. I think it was about 7 or 8 days without charging it, which is pretty phenomenal. And then all of it works on your phone, and you can kind of keep track of things. And um, it's really a minimalist kind of design for a fitness slash sleep tracker. Um,
And apparently, I'll be testing one from a woman's perspective soon. I think I have one that we just need to size and get underway. So I'm excited for that.
yeah, and it should be. I think you'll like it, because I know you don't like wearing things around your wrists and things like that. So you
Nope.
need
It
to.
it took me like
Yeah.
30 years to finally start wearing a watch. Like I
Yeah,
do not like wearing things. So, but I'm used to rings, so I think I'll be able to wear the Aura.
we just got to make sure we size it right, because I may have sized myself a little wrong, and it took a minute to get used to. But anyway, that's kind of a cool new testing thing we've been doing. And to the point, we'll talk about this in our next podcast, because I'm actually reached out about this research. There was research done at Notre Dame recently about watch bands and fitness trackers, and about them having forever chemicals in them that seep into your skin and can cause cancers and ultimately death at some point. Because and so Apple's on the list. They tested 22 different types of trackers, and Apple and Fitbits, all that kind of stuff. So I reached out to try to get the details. I didn't want to cover it without having all the details, but I do want to mention it. We're gonna basically bring you the details once we hear back from the folks that did the study, because there are articles out there about it. If you want to Google and look for it, look up PFAS. I guess it'd be health trackers or something like that. PFAS and health trackers, and you'll find the research and coverage, but it doesn't specifically lay out which versions are a problem. And I have a newer version that's made out of like a rubber slash silicone, I think, silicone. I don't know if that's on the list. Jen, I don't know if yours is on the list. I don't know which ones are on the list. So I need to know which ones are on the list, so we can
See, I
determine.
shouldn't have started.
Right. Well, it might have been killing us. This whole thing, we're trying to be healthy, and here we are killing ourselves with these trackers. But I don't know. There's a lawsuit actually, that's currently been filed um, against Apple because of it, and I'm assuming that others could keep coming. But from what I've read in the reports, and again, this is not the official report, it was coverage of the report. Some of the top bands and fitness trackers are like ridiculously heavily loaded with these forever chemicals to the point that it's like unbelievably high. So I want to get the details so we can better report on it. So more on that to come. As our next, we'll talk about that next time we talk about testing, and we're getting to that point where we're going to talk about watching. What have we been watching, listening, reading, all that? Johnny, we'll go around the horn pretty quick here. What do you think?
We've been watching season 2 of Night Agent on Netflix, which is a spy thriller.
Mhm.
It's pretty intense. You get kind of sweaty watching it because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. So could definitely suggest giving that a watch when you get a sec.
Night Agent. I thought you were going to say like the playoffs for NFL. I know we got the Super Bowl coming up and everything. That's going to be a rematch, so it'll be interesting to see. All right, Jen, you been watching football? Is that what it was?
Ah, ha, ha, ha. Go sports. Nope. My sister sent me this little thing to watch, and for all you Harrison Ford fans out there, this is a six-part YouTube special. You can watch it in like, a half hour or so. And it's youtube.com/Glenn. I'm gonna butcher this. Glenn Morangi. Is that how you say that? I think it's a Scotch.
Hmm.
And it's just this fun six-part like entertainment commercial starring Harrison Ford, and it's really fun. So if you're a Harrison Ford fan, I highly recommend. And next up, Severance. I watched the first season. I'm really excited to dive in. Frank, have you watched it yet?
I watched one and a half. I don't know. You remember that? What's that show that we watched where they it was on HBO and or Max, and then all of a sudden it was like the robot. What was the name of it? Westworld. Remember Westworld? You know
Oh,
how we
yes.
watched like Westworld season one and then two, and then we kind of got bored and like it got weird. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
doesn't happen in Severance. So I don't know. I couldn't get as engaged this time in Severance as I was last time, and maybe it's just because I don't know, was doing it distracted or something. I was on a plane, so I don't know.
Well, I was a huge, huge fan of season one, so I'm really excited to start season two. And I'm really hopeful that at some point soon I'll get to see Complete Unknown. But unfortunately, instead I have tickets to go see Dogman because I have a 9-year-old.
Yeah, Dogman's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to that. Complete Unknown would be just one I would like to see. That's the Bob Dylan film about Bob Dylan. I'd love to see that, and so it's on my list as well. All right, moving along here, John. I took your advice. I watched Bookie on Max, and it's like a really quick watch. It's shorter episodes, really funny. Reminds me of a cross between Entourage and Sopranos and Ballers, kind of all in one. Lighter on the Sopranos side because people aren't getting whacked, but Ballers and Entourage for sure, and it's pretty good. I think I'm now waiting for their next episode, which means I think got through the first two seasons, or I think they're still on season two. So that's pretty good. And then Saturday night was, I think I mentioned it before, I don't remember, but I've been watching a lot of things on planes because I've been traveling a lot. Most of this month I've been on the road, and so I watched this biopic about it's a kind of a comedic drama around Saturday Night Live in the first inaugural episode in 1975, and it's pretty funny. So check it out if you get it. It's out I think on Netflix now, I believe. So it's worth a watch as well, especially if you like Saturday Night Live, which is currently in its what 50th season, right? So um, really interesting to see how it started. All right, final thoughts as we go in. Anything that you're currently thinking about that is getting you excited for the next couple weeks?
Hmm. I don't know about the next couple of weeks, but I'm going to do some lacrosse coaching tonight. So wish me luck with that.
Awesome. Do you play lacrosse, John?
I've never, no, lacrosse wasn't around when I was younger. I don't know about maybe you, Jen, being on the East Coast, it might have been there, but we didn't have lacrosse when I was in high school.
I I do not. Now I could be totally wrong, and I'll have some friend come to me later and be like, "Dude, I played lacrosse," but I don't think we had it either at my school. I never saw it until college. Once I was in college, then I remember actually, I think they started at least the first women's lacrosse team while I was at AU.
Hmm. Interesting. We didn't have it in where I grew up, but I know that it's gotten really big, especially on the East Coast. You see a lot of it. And to similar to you, John, I helped out with the coaching a couple years ago, and our little one was into it for a little bit, but she got over it quickly after getting hit by a lacrosse ball. So, because they don't wear padding, like the boys wear a lot more padding than the girls do, and the balls I think the same or pretty much the
The
same. So
girls had, it was so crazy. You saw
it's
these
like
little
a
boys and they're all padded up. And then the girls come and all they've got is a mouth guard and
and
like
like
that's
a
it.
and like a little hat or something.
Right.
And goggles or something. I
Yeah,
actually
goggle.
noticed that last
Yeah.
week when I was there watching the little girls, they just had goggles on, it looked like.
But you still could
And
get hit by the ball, and the ball's hard.
Yeah,
It's not
like
like it's like
it's
oh
hitting
no
a
yeah.
wonder she
baseball.
doesn't want to play.
No, I get it. I mean that yeah, and then the boys all had, shoulder pads and helmets and stuff like that.
Like
So
football.
I didn't understand that myself.
Yeah, yeah, like US football gear kind of thing. But anyway, that's great. Jen, anything?
Hmm.
Dogman?
No.
Looking forward to Dogman? Dogman? Maybe
Going to Dogman, yes.
Dogman, yeah.
That's the excitement I have going on in my life right now.
Well, looking forward to maybe depending on when this podcast comes out, a very short winter long as we roll into spring with the groundhog. So that's coming up here and looking forward to Groundhog Day. If you haven't seen Groundhog Day, the movie, check it out. It took place in my hometown. It's kind of a fun little pick about a weatherman that keeps living the same day over and over again. Bill Murray classic. So check that out. And with that, thanks everyone for joining. Looking forward to, another week or two of AI stuff, and we're just going to be like, I don't know if we're going to even have to do anything. I think it's just going to do everything for us. So looking forward to that as we blaze ahead here. And I feel like we're living in the future right now. Things are just happening like space and AI, and I don't know. It's crazy. So looking forward to talking to y'all soon. Thank you all for joining, and thanks everyone for being here and listening to Somewhat Frank Podcast. We'll be back again with a new episode. Thanks so much. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to the Somewhat Frank Podcast. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and leave us a review. We love the feedback and are grateful to have you as a listener. Have a great day.